Yesterday was a tough day. Um, yeah, France go out of the World Cup, lose to Spain, and that's it. Didier Deschamps' competitive matches, I will say, as manager of France are over because the third place game isn't really that competitive. It'll be a nice way for him to throw on the bench, right? Maybe we'll see N'Golo Kante. We'll probably see Brice Samba, Shirky from the start. You know, Mbappe will play because he's going for the golden boot. So Dictator Mbappe will be like, my name is on the board. And then I doubt we'll see Dembele. I doubt we'll see Olise. I think it'll probably be a heavily rotated France squad for that. So Didier Deschamps, he's someone who I just want to thank as a France fan because I remember him as captain winning the World Cup in 98, the Euros in 2000, and that started this era of real success for France. And it's been a really solid, essentially 28 years. Spain, they've gotten on that as well. They really, once they won that Euro in 2008, and then the World Cup in 2010, and then the Euro again in 2012, they really put themselves on the map. And having won the Euros 2 years ago, they're now completely set as one of the top table teams. And it's interesting because Spain and France were two teams who, prior to the 90s, didn't have anything. Like, they'd never won. I think they'd maybe each won a Euro, something like that. But they were not top-level teams, right? It was Germany, Italy, even England was considered above them in Europe. And basically, these two were sort of also-rans, if you will, in the European game. And in the last 30 years, Spain and France have devoured tournaments, just one after another, getting deep. And Spain, like, when they've lost, it's been because a team goes low block on them and they just can't find a way through. And they lose on penalties. When France have lost, it's been because they're just not quite playing up to the level they're supposed to, that the talent would require in these types of big games. France are flat track bullies for sure. I don't mean that in a bad way. They beat a lot of the teams that they should. And they beat them convincingly, which gives you this idea that, oh my God, if they play like that against a big team, they'll beat them too. The problem is France's style of play. Look, it's fantastic. I love the fact that the French do not like select players and play ugly football. They just don't do it. Spain have completely revolutionized the way that they pick players. Back in the 90s, it was a lot of guys who were bigger, more physical, stronger. Then they went shorter, more technical, and it's completely changed the way that they go about things. So, look, credit to these two teams. Spain was the better team, easily. It was hard to watch as a France fan, just like knowing and just feeling that no goal was coming from that attack, that you were just hoping for just a moment, and that Spain had real control of the way the game was going to be played. Could France get out of it? Sure. They didn't, and their front four were pretty ineffective. So what we're going to do here is go over some of these clips that I have that really show you chronologically like what happened throughout the game, just some of the tiny details. There are loads more. If you want to go through the game yourself at some point, you can watch them and see all kinds of little things come out. But what it really does is reinforce what we all saw. I just think that there's a little added context that you can give in terms of, was this an utter domination? I don't think so. I wrote in the title, Spain devoured France, because that's what they did. They just ate them up over the, like, they didn't just, turn the plate over and swallow them whole. They devoured them. They ate them bit by bit and just tore them apart. And it took a while for it to look as decisive as it was. But when you look back at the game in its entirety, you go, yeah, Spain from the off really had an advantage, and France never cut into that. So let's go ahead and break down some of these clips from this game. We'll go through chronologically. So the first 15 minutes, the first 20 minutes, basically will go from the entire 0-0 before the first goal was scored. Then we'll get into basically the first goal and what happened, and then that period at 1-0 in between, because that's a really important part of the game. And I think that's where Spain really ended up just edging themselves out once they got that second goal, it was over. So let's go ahead and break these things down. Spain versus France, World Cup semifinal. Here are the first 20 minutes. Okay, so what we noticed from Didier Deschamps right away is he didn't change anything. Okay, he decided, I'm going to keep my front four. It's what's been working all tournament. This is an interesting question. What do you do about this? Do you change the way you're playing because of the opponent? Because now it's the first real big team you played who is not going to be scared of you? Or do you roll at the same thing? He decided to roll at the same thing. One big change. Aurélien Tchouameni came into the midfield in place of Manu Kone. I found that strange. I think Kone's been better in this tournament. He's better at progressing the ball forward. Tchouameni, a little bit more of a defensive holding midfielder. Now, you can see here, Spain have their clear five, right? They've got Dani Olmo as their 10, Lamine Yamal and Baena as just slightly withdrawn wingers, and then Fabian Ruiz and Rodri in the middle. And then, of course, Oyarzabal up front. This was Spain's sort of front five block that they had. And what actually, the narrowness of this meant that Digne and Koundé on the other side were able to get the ball and drive forward pretty frequently. And they were able to just find these passes to advance and then run on. And that was actually a really important thing that if France could get right, they could hurt Spain because Lamine Yamal doesn't track back much. Baena does. But here you got Kylian Mbappe, spreads the field, is able to get out of traffic, and he's able to spread the field. But look at Dani Olmo coming back. This was crucial for Spain. They worked tirelessly off the ball in this game, and it was probably what won it for them. Because if Dani Olmo just decides, they've got him covered, and Mbappe's here, and he's able to drive this way, he can then find Olise, who can then find Dembele. You've got Koundé running forward. So this by Dani Olmo, and this is not the last time we'll see it, where he comes in and snuffs out the attack and basically just takes the ball from Mbappe and wins it, and Spain are able to regain possession. This happened multiple times in the game. The other thing about France is they were kind of sloppy, and they could not really get a hold of a guy like Dani Olmo, who is in perfect form. This is just another example of, that was Dani Olmo off the ball, this is Dani Olmo on the ball. Drops in, receives on the half turn, starts to look up and find space, just lets it go off his foot, and now he's going to occupy a different area. But no, actually, he's realized that Rabiot sees that he's going to try and run through here, so he just stands still, receives it, and this is great from Dani Olmo. Little change of the hip right there. Makes it look like he's going to go back to Rodri, and Olise decides I'm going to cut that out, and instead he just turns this way. It's so subtle from Dani Olmo, but as he looks and slightly turns right there, that's when Olise is like, oh, he's going to go in this direction, and he doesn't. So brilliant from Dani Olmo. He then plays the ball off, and once again, he's standing in the middle, ready for it. And this is where France then had to drop into their 4-4-2, with Dembele dropping in, Barcola dropping in, and Olise sort of staying near Rodri. That was definitely part of the plan. And France, look, if they did a good job of winning the ball from Spain in these areas, they had a real chance to counterattack. Look how many Spanish players are forward. First of all, the left back, Cucurella, is up. Okay. You've got Laporte, the left center back, who's up. Baena's on the right. Oyarzabal, Fabian Ruiz, Dani Olmo, Lamine Yamal, Pedro Porro. I mean, there are 9 players from Spain in France's half, which means if you win it, which right there, Baena tries to play a ball through, Jules Koundé blocks it, and it goes right to Dembele. And his immediate reaction, how can I quickly find Kylian? And he does the right thing. Gets the ball into Kylian Mbappe. He's able to receive, make sure he keeps the ball, turns, and plays it out to Digne. Now, this is the thing, is when he gets here, this ball needs to be played through for Barcola to run. That's the whole reason Barcola's on the field instead of Doué, because he is a runner. As soon as Mbappe takes this touch right here, it's got to be a left-footed ball through for Barcola to run. And he may not get there, but it forces Spain to chase. It forces them to deal with the counterattack. Okay, so you take a couple extra touches. That pass sort of goes away. So you bring in Luka Digne. That's fine. But now look at France, right? Dembele and Olise are coming up here, but there's no one in this central area. And actually, Barcola does a good job of evading the first tackle, and then immediately after he is trying to chip this ball across, is confronted, and it's blocked out. And Spain just kind of get away with that. This is 5 minutes in. If France handle this attack a little bit better and create a shooting opportunity, who knows, right? They could score. As I said, the wide areas were pretty free. Baena got this ball from Upamecano to Koundé. I don't know how many times it happened, but it was frequent. Baena was not cutting this off. He was trying to cut off balls into the front line. Perfectly adequate plan. You can't cut both, so you allow Koundé to get the ball. But when he got into this area, this is a problem. Spain's back line is comfortable here because they don't have anyone running off of them. Dembele needs to be here immediately making the run so that this underlapping pass can go through to him. And even if it doesn't get played there, Cucurella has to run with him. And that allows Koundé to drive even further and maybe switch the play. The other key is Mbappe needs to be here so that Koundé can play that ball across. Again, the France players just are not forward enough. The ball gets played into Dembele's feet. He tries to play it forward, and Cucurella can get the block in. And it's just these little tiny things by France. Again, we're 7 minutes in. This was a great opportunity. I mean, look at the numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players against essentially 5. You have a good opportunity to do something, but you kind of blow it by being sloppy, essentially. And that's a problem for France. They were sloppy. Now, defensively for France and in an attack for Spain, you got Lamine Yamal right here. So he's in a gap, asking for it. Pedro Porro's running off the back of him. This is key what France had to deal with. Barcola's got a drop, and he and Dean, you have to decide who's taking who here. So Barcola's cutting off the ball to Porro, but he's not close enough to stop a ball over the top. Also, Lamine Yamal is now getting free because if it gets bumped into him and he just passes it off to Porro, Porro's in. So Digne has to drop off. This allows Lamine Yamal to get the ball. And I have to say, Rabiot had a very good game. I mean, he only played the first half, but he did do very, very well. And here he is just getting in the way and muscling Lamine Yamal off the ball. That was one of the many jobs that Rabiot had. Then when you got France trying to build out of this situation, this is a brilliant ball by Dayot Upamecano, splits the whole defense, gets right to Michael Olise, and he starts to drive forward. Once again, a brilliant opportunity. You've got Kylian Mbappe running through the middle, but this ball is a tough one. Now, Michael Olise plays tough balls. He's been accomplishing this all tournament, so I'm not going to criticize him for trying. But probably the best ball is to go to Dembele, who can then square it for Mbappe. So the wrong decision taken right there, because Dembele one-on-one with Cucurella driving forward to the box is a better option. Again, just a show of how France were making poor decisions in a lot of situations. Technically not very good and getting themselves into a lot of trouble. But when they drew in the Spanish press and were able to beat it, like right here, finding Rabiot in open space, man, France were able to absolutely put Spain under pressure. But here, you've got Barcola making the run inside, so he cuts himself off, which means Rabiot just basically has to keep going. And Mbappe drops off, and that means he's like, I want the ball. Give me the ball. Okay, fine. We'll slow down the attack and give you the ball. But now you have to create something. Little bounce pass back, and France have lost their counterattack. So you can just see the decisions making of what positions players took up, what passing choices they made. But it's not as if France couldn't break this press from Spain. Here's that front five again. Olise just goes right over the top of all same page, and it goes out of play. Spain, when they're building out, this is what's really difficult about Spain. They can find so many ways out. Look at this pass from Laporte to into Dani Olmo. Such a ballsy thing to do. But Rabiot, again, did play quite well, intercepting balls, trying to keep Spain from getting forward, and France were able to win it. But then you had this issue. Michael Olise, just not on his day, tries to do the little Cruyff touch to get behind, gets absolutely smothered there by Fabian Ruiz, and Spain are able to go the other way. So even when France were starting to look good, they would immediately do something that would cut off an attack. Now you got Baena coming to the corner. This is a huge opportunity for France on the counterattack. It gets blocked by Koundé, and look at this ball from Olise. Just what a touch. On the little half volley, plays it into the run of Dembele. He looks forward, knows exactly what you got to do, try and find Mbappe quickly. One touch across the field, past Kubarsi. I mean, that's an unbelievable ball. But now, Mbappe, I understand what he wants to do here. He wants to try and settle it and run at Kubarsi. But I think what he should be doing is taking this out here into this area where he has space where he can run away from the from the recovering defenders and keep his pace going. Instead, he chests it there, and now he's got to go by Kubarsi, and he actually does a pretty good job of it. But now he's slowed down enough that Spain can recover. They do, and they almost get the ball off him. He gives it to Dembele, who crosses it, and it gets to Barcola on the far side. Now, again, this attack's not done for France. He finds Olise. Olise tries to play it across, and it's blocked. And you just wondered, like, which way is this game going to go? Are France going to make one of these attacks pay, or are Spain, in their confident, simple possession, going to just find an opening? Because at this point in the game, you didn't really see how Spain were going to score, but you started to see more of this from France. Like, what is that ball from Olise? It's just a really bad one. Puts Rabiot in a big spot of trouble because now he's got to go in for this ball. And he might foul Dani Olmo if he goes in too hard. In the end, it's Dani Olmo who wins it anyway, and Spain recover possession. Then you got this right here. Dani Olmo, look at this ball from Cubarsí to Olmo. And the way he turns off to draw Rabiot to have to run, and then he cuts it back to give himself the room to go across. It's just brilliant play. But Fabien Ruiz is open. Rodri has now just run beyond, and watch the way the French midfielders just all kind of leave players. Fabien Ruiz still free. Mbappe, okay, I'm going to run, but now Dani Olmo is here and Rodri is here. So Rabiot's got 2 to cover. And now Dani Olmo's free because everyone else is marked up. Fine. Okay, we go out to Cucurella. So this is the first goal. Cucurella swings the ball in. It's not a great cross. It's way over the head of everybody, and you can't even see Lamine Yamal in your picture here. So that's how much time Luca Digne has. Now Lamine Yamal starts to come in. Because he's that far away, Digne knows that he can't just head it out because it'll just go right to Lamine Yamal. But he should check his shoulder here to realize how far Lamine is, and then he can just turn with it and essentially deal with the situation here. He basically just doesn't check his shoulder. And after he heads that ball up, he needs to look to see, is he coming? If so, he can just jump in, head it again, probably get fouled, and it's no drama. Instead, he swings without looking, kicks Lamine Yamal. Penalty is awarded. Look, I have my issues with these penalties, but they are penalties. Like, they are, by the rules, a foul. So the penalty's given. I think my issue with this is Lamine Yamal, look, is there a case for handball here? I don't know, whatever. It hits the sleeve. His arm's also against his body, so no. But, like, this kick, it's just interesting to me because I see these given a lot, and sometimes I'm like, the player clearly has embellished this. He's not really gone to play the ball. He's just gone to get himself kicked. Is there any way that the laws can be looked at or that referees can interpret this their own way? I don't know. That's maybe just me clutching at straws. But Lamine Yamal goes down, penalty, Oyarzabal steps up, buries it, and it's 1-0 Spain. So, let's break down a few things here. Again, this game, when people have talked about it in the last less than 24 hours, people have been saying that Spain utterly dominated. I mean, I have a Spanish friend who was like, he saw my text that I sent him about it and also one of my reels I made, and he was like, the first goal didn't change anything. Spain were already completely dominating. And I know that when the game is over, that's what it felt like. It felt like that to me, that Spain dominated from the beginning. Then I watch it, and I'm like, man, France really created some decent openings in that stretch before they went 1-0 down. The problem with going 1-0 down against Spain, they just don't need to commit as many men forward if they don't want to. They just don't need to. They don't need to push 6, 7, 8, 9 guys into attack if they don't feel like it, because now they have the lead and they'll just keep the ball and make the field big. It's essentially what they did after that, and that was always the danger for France. If Spain got the lead, how would France get enough rhythm to be able to get the ball back and score goals? And this is the thing. We saw France just never built up a rhythm where chances and possession and just off-the-ball runs and a flow, it just never seemed like it was ever settled and going to happen with any consistency. And so it didn't feel like they were going to score. Okay, so that's the first 20 minutes. How did things change after that? I think this is the first time we've seen France behind in the tournament, and they reacted, I wouldn't say poorly, but things just didn't go well, right? You've gone down a goal, and by the way, the goal, as we saw, it doesn't really have to do with all these amazing things Spain can do. Yes, it was a simple stretch of possession, but then it's just a mistake by Luca Digne. And mistakes in these games are so crucial. If you make them, your team might lose. And Spain made fewer than France, and the ones that Spain made were not punished and capitalized on. Okay, so let's get into the next stretch of the match here. This is after the 1-0 lead. Spain now, what did they do in this part of the match? Well, look, they were winning so many second balls here. Rabiot wins this one after it's heading to the midfield. Spain get it back, and watch how quickly they're trying to get out of pressure. This clip is actually about the counter pressing, my bad, from both teams. So you got Rabiot winning the header here, Spain getting to it first, then Rodri gets the ball. He's immediately crowded out by Mbappe and Olise, and France have an opportunity to attack. Now, again, Mbappe, he did this a lot in the game. We saw earlier where he gets the ball here into this scenario. It's like zip it into Barcola's feet. He's 1v1, right? And you have a front three here, so you got guys who can get in the box. Get it into him now. Or if you are going to take this touch in, immediately involve Rabiot. But now you slow it down, you chop back, and it's like, it's not so much that the next thing is bad because this pass is a good one, but it just should have happened earlier. And now look, Spain have 4 more guys back. The ball gets bumped out from Rabiot to Digne, and Spain have literally all 11 players behind the ball. So then you've got this. Aurélien Tchouameni receives the ball from Luca Digne. He makes a good run. And I see this ball. I see it. But you've got to get more curl on it because that straight pass that everyone sees, Pedro Porro realizes absolutely that that's coming. It's not going to make it through, right? You've just got to be better in those scenarios. And then this is a huge moment for France. William Saliba pulls up injured, sits down. I don't know why he does this. Like, get the ball out of play so that Spain don't just steal it, run, and score. And the ref's like, what? I didn't stop the game. So he actually does that right there. But yeah, Saliba going off, massive blow for France because Lacroix, quite honestly, I'll show you in the second half, not the same player on the ball. So Spain, look, when they could play out of the back, they did expertly well. But in situations like these, you can see Cucurella here, bottom of the screen. He is nowhere near his left back position. And this is Aymeric Laporte. So there is nobody for Spain in this area for Unai Simon to pass to. So when balls came to him and he didn't have an option, he just went long. Why? Well, because they have more players up in an advanced area. It just makes sense. And this is another thing. Spain didn't take as many risks building out of the back as France did. Think about that. Like, Spain were just smart about when they did it, which passes they chose. They have the technical players to do it. There, Lacroix wins the ball. And this is, again, Dani Olmo. Watch how he just anticipates this whole thing. As soon as the ball is going to Olise, he realizes, I've got to drop in and help. Olise takes a nice little Cruyff touch to get away from Rodri. He almost does, but look who's there. Dani Olmo right away able to get in there and steal the ball. Rodri screens Olise, and Spain get away with the ball. Now, this was just... I can't even include all the different situations where Spain were able to counter-press supremely well. They did it in basic ways. France made a lot of mistakes. Again, just showing Rabiot's importance, winning this tackle. Then he gets the ball off his foot to Barcola. Barcola tries to play the 1-2 into the path of Olise, loses it. Watch Rabiot here. Just... dude, like, what am I supposed to do? I just won this ball, gave it to you, and now we lose it again. And now when you lose the ball that quickly to Spain, you get yourself into all kinds of problems. Another example, ball comes into, look, this is another build-up by France. Ball comes into Olise. He turns, plays Dembele, who is now dropping way into this pocket. And look at the entire Spain team, basically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The only player that you don't see in this, I don't even know who it is. Oriozabal's there, Ruiz, Rodri, Dani Olmo. Dani Olmo's out of the picture somewhere. The whole back line, look how scrunched they are. So there's an enormous space over here. That ball needs to go to Koundé. But this ball from Dembele looking for Barcola through this space, it's just not on. So again, the France decision making just was so poor. And when they were trying to build out, sometimes they would do these really nice segments of passes in through tight gaps. Get it in. Dembele, once again, dropping into this part of the field. I thought that was a good thing. Plays the ball wide to Barcola, and this attack should yield more. Again, Barcola does a good job of stepping in. He's got Digne running, and he does this really good fake shot chop and pulls it a little bit, which is great because it opens the space for the shot. That's a great move. You don't want to use the Ronaldinho. That's fine. But you have to be more decisive. Oh, sorry. You have to be more decisive with your shot. You have to take a better hit than to put it way over the bar like that. So you just think about the opportunities France sort of created, and it's where their front line just didn't step up. Now they had problems with Cucurella, France, because Baena, he loves to receive the ball cut in. He loves to drive, sort of run in here off the ball as well and allow the space for Cucurella. And once Spain got into this position, they were so comfortable. But look at this from Michael Olise. You're in the right place. This is great. Look, everyone's matched up. You're probably good. No problems. This is not defending, Michael Olise. The guy just walked away from you. You just were like, okay, cool, he's going to pass it. And Ruiz is like, oh, thanks. I'll just drive into this area. And, I mean, this almost turned into an absolutely spectacular move from Spain. Dani Olmo gets it. He's got 4 guys around him. Oh, no, this is the one that, yeah. So it gets snuffed out once again by Rabiot. Comes to Porro, and he fires over the bar. That's not the one. There's so many of these clips. France building out. This is almost the utter disaster. I don't know why Lacroix here decides to go to Maignan. This ball's not on when Oyarzabal's this close, and he can't really turn and get it out to Upamecano. But they started putting themselves under unnecessary pressure. You've got Maignan kicking the ball out, Baena running up and winning it. And this was almost, a huge moment. This almost went 2-0 in the first half. Terrible giveaway. Rodri gets the ball to Lamine Yamal. Little one-touch ball in around the corner to Olmo, and then he spins and runs. Fantastic play. Olmo, little back heel, splits the French defense. Almost gets Lamine Yamal in, just not quite at an angle where he can shoot. He plays it across to Ruiz, and Dayot Upamecano is there, I think just to put Ruiz off and maybe get a touch on the ball. But Ruiz goes outside of the foot here, which is ambitious. Probably sweeping it with the right would have been a better choice. But France almost shot themselves completely in the foot right there to go 2-0 down. A couple more clips here in the first half. France were just starting to struggle. And I think Lacroix coming in, you could see that he was not as comfortable on the ball. Here, big ball out, headed by Digne to Barcola. He does great to get the ball to Rabiot. And this is just an important thing. So I think Mbappe is offside here, but I can't be sure. But either way, this ball through, this looks like, oh my God, France are on a breakaway. But look who comes flying out. Unai Simon. It's a ballsy tackle, and he does the sweeper keeper libero very well. He did this later in the game. This was a really important tactical key from Spain, that Unai Simon would be willing to really charge out of his box if the back line got breached and Mbappe was sent through. Huge moment right there, because if the goalie doesn't do that, Mbappe probably scores. He's so good from those 1v1 situations. So you can see how Spain did so many of these little tiny defensive things right, and where France were making big mistakes in attack. You got this right here. Olise driving forward, and Baena just steams all the way back to help, and they got 3 guys on Olise, and they win the ball. That defensive determination from Spain was huge. And we actually heard Luis de la Fuente after the game talking about how he really wants his team to be able to handle suffering. And look, Spain don't need to look like they're winning the game to feel like they're winning the game. And once they get the ball under control and they start popping it around, it's danger. It's just a problem. And then you have people running in like Oyarzabal charging into midfield. It's just a mess to deal with. Here you got another piece of sloppy play. Olise driving forward, plays it into Dembele. Dembele, I don't know what he's thinking here, trying to play it back. It just makes no sense. Maybe lay it off for Koundé, but it doesn't work out. Baena's there again. You got to give it to Spain for the way they just kept persevering defensively off the ball. Great work. But they were giving France these channels. Again, you've got Koundé receiving the ball, able to drive forward completely unimpeded. And this is where you need somebody in this area of the field, right? Mbappe's starting to make the run, but it's too late. Look where he was right here. As soon as Koundé starts to dribble here, you've got to be going, sprinting. And he doesn't really start until now because he wants to try and draw Cubarsí in and then sprint by him. But Cubarsí already had the jump on him. Kylian Mbappe just has to get to this area first. That's quite simple. Because that's where the ball goes, and it was like a little bit ahead of him, maybe a yard and a half, 2 yards ahead of him, and there was no way he was getting there. But if he makes the run early, he possibly does. Then you've got this. I mean, Dembele receiving the ball in this area. Like, dude, turn, put a body on Rodri, turn, and then you can just slip in Mbappe. Nope. Decides to go back, and Rodri with yet another tackle. He had multiple in the game. Absolutely fantastic work from Spain, and it takes us to halftime. So, thoughts on the first half? Well, after Spain took the lead, what I saw was the sloppiness level from France and the impatience grow. It wasn't so much that Spain were just dominating the ball at this point in the game. Actually, it was France turning it over a lot more. France were starting to struggle with their build-outs hugely when Saliba came off. I mean, that was wild, actually, to see the difference between Saliba and Lacroix. Like, as soon as Lacroix came on, you're like, whoa, that guy's not as comfortable on the ball. That guy's pass selection doesn't happen as quickly. It's not as clean of a pass. Sure, he's big. He's going to win headers, but, like, I'm not so convinced. In the second half, he would make an error for the goal that Pedro Porro would score. I think Doué's more culpable for that. We'll get to that very shortly. But, yeah, I think just in terms of perceptions, when you watch a game, Spain looked in a lot of ways like they were just utterly destroying France all over the pitch. But when France are turning over that many balls in that many situations, not making the right runs, taking too long on the ball when the next pass is an obvious one, sounds a lot like the U.S. game against Belgium. From France, this was not quite as poor of a performance, but it was the same type of performance. It felt flat because the players that are supposed to do really good things were just average. They were just okay and not World Cup semifinal level, right? So I think that was a big issue. And look, I am looking at this from a France perspective. My team lost. Like, I know I could go through and gush all over Spain. But here's the thing about Spain. Their game is not that complicated. They know what they're all supposed to do in their footballing ethos, right? Like, everyone understands the way the game is supposed to be played, according to Spain. And they all do it. And so, in a way, it doesn't matter who is on the field. It's just players who are in form, hungry, ready to go to battle and win duels. And this is a key thing. Duels won. Where's my phone? I want to pull up. Actually, we can pull up FOTMob here. Let me do that, and we can take a look at these together. So, France versus Spain. See if you're along with me. Yes. Sorry about that. Okay. Stats. Let's take a look at, overall expected goals. Yeah, they scored 2. They had 10 shots. France had 10. France's 10 shots were terrible. Only 3 on target. They had more touches in the opposition box. Didn't make use of them, obviously. No big chances created. Bam. That's the number of why they didn't score a goal. Right? They didn't create a big chance. They couldn't even miss a big chance. But yeah, let's take a look at the defensive side of things. Tackles, 22-13. By that, you would expect a massive difference in ball possession, and Spain had more. That's pretty serious. Interceptions, basically equal. Blocks, basically equal. Clearances from Spain. This means that they won more balls in and around their box and got them away. That's what that means, right? So that means that they were winning headers in their box, or France were not playing in good crosses. Both were happening. Duels won. It's not a big difference, but Spain won that. Ground duels, basically the same. Same with aerial duels, successful dribbles. This is what France do. Don't be surprised that Spain only had 2. Not very many of their players dribble. Most of the time they pass it. But I think the duels won. This 52-44. It doesn't look huge, but when you mix it with the tackles, it just becomes outsized, right? Because they're in very specific moments. They're when France are trying to counterattack. They're when France are trying to build a head of steam. These were all of these tackles, all of these duels won for Spain. So many of them, they dented France's confidence. So that was a big piece of it. Spain, frankly, came to battle defensively, and they were able to mitigate France in a way that Paraguay, unfortunately, couldn't, because they weren't pressing high up the pitch. They were giving too much of the ball to France. I said this a few days ago when I was previewing the game. This is the problem with this France team. Like, they will struggle against Spain because Spain will keep the ball and be able to deal with their counterattacks for the most part. All right, let's get into the second half here. So, yeah, we're nearing the end. But we get into the second half. Here you go. This is just Lacroix on the ball. Like, look, dude, stop. You don't have any obvious passing option available. Stop and keep the space bigger so that you can find a window. Instead of just dribbling with no idea, asking people to come to the ball. Like what, you want Manu Kone to check in so he can give it back to you? Like, no, this doesn't make sense. You've actually also got Olmo cutting off the ball to Tchouaméni. So you need to do something else. But look at the situation he gets himself in. Oh, okay, no, I'm going to dribble this way. Takes a touch there, realizes that Oyarzabal sees him looking back, which is good. At least he doesn't just play it blind. But now he's like, oh, I can't go back there either, even though he could. He could play it right here to Maignan, who could clear it. But he frazzles himself, runs towards the sideline. Dani Olmo keeps pressing, and it gets cleared out. Now, if I'm Spain, 1 minute into the second half, and that center back looks that rattled, immediately the whole team's like, we still got him. They haven't woken up, and we're going to be good. So I just want to mention this because Lamine Yamal is a great little run, gets away from Lucas Digne, but look at Bradley Barcola. The effort he puts in here to run with him, body him, that's not a foul, and to win the ball, that was huge. One of the reasons Barcola played, I think there's two major ones, that, the defensive contributions, one, and the other is his speed going forward, in behind the defense. That was the other. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that second one, but this was a great example of how you could help Lucas Digne with Lamine Yamal and then immediately start to get forward again. That's really, really good. Now, I believe this is the goal. Oh, no, not yet. Just another little bit of Dani Olmo being brilliant. Receiving the ball in the half turn, gets pressure, starts to dribble away, cuts it back the other way, sends Lacroix for a hamburger, turns out, and now he can go the other side. And Oyarzabal drifting off of Upamecano. You've got Baena making a run through, so Koundé's got to follow him. And this touch right here by Oyarzabal goes right into his feet, just chips it over Upamecano's leg. I mean, that is absolutely brilliant. And though Baena is now offside, he can now bring Lamine Yamal into play if he wants to. Lamine Yamal decides, let's slow it down. Let's play a little, let's tap the ball around here a little bit. Gets to Dani Olmo, back to Lamine, and this is brilliant from Lamine. This pass splits the two defenders into Rodri, and now Spain can go the other way. It's just a show of what Spain can do, and there obviously are many moments in the match where you'll see Spain do this. But then, once you've got Fabian Ruiz receiving the ball here and Cucurella bombing forward, France have problems. Now, this ball gets overhit, but that was the first warning. That stretch of possession there was like, oh man, like Spain are on it, and France are now looking a little desperate in the way they're running. This is the goal. So it's a long build-up, but basically it's Spain just keeping the ball. This is nice by Laporte to just chop that ball back into Rodri instead of going into the pressure where France are all running. Just drops it back. Rodri then can look and play it out to Fabian Ruiz, who then gets it to Pedro Porro. Now this is key right here. Pedro Porro looks up the line and Doué totally bites. Like Pedro Porro makes it look like he's just going to pass it right up here into the feet of Lamine Yamal. And Doué just overcommits heavily. Porro chops it in on him and gets away. And actually, this is huge because Porro just drives across, gives the ball to Rodri, and watch this. Rodri recognizes he's got pressure, but as soon as Pedro Porro gave the ball to Rodri, Doué stops. And so Pedro Porro just says, just give it back to me. Rodri plays it to him, and Spain have now completely beaten the French pressure. And this is where all the imbalances in this move started. So now Pedro Porro, he starts to run forward a little bit. Manu Kone has drifted towards the ball, off of Dani Olmo, and there's a hole because now France have 5 players up, and getting through them is too easy. Kone should be tracking Dani Olmo. Doué should be staying with Pedro Porro. Instead, he just kind of lets Pedro Porro run off him, and Kone doesn't mark Dani Olmo, so he gets it, and Spain have now broken the French midfield, and they're driving at him. So now what happens? Well, ball gets to Baena. He tries to shoot. Koundé blocks it. It comes to Rodri. But now look how deep France are. Doué's here. The back line, Kone, Tchouaméni. The two defensive midfielders are now part of the defensive line, essentially. So there is no one else in midfield. There just isn't, because France are only playing with two. So Rodri and Fabian Ruiz can just stand here and watch what happens. Ball gets played into Digne. I don't think this is a bad header out. I think it would have been better to head it in this direction, but hey, he at least still clears it. But as soon as this ball goes out here, Tchouaméni needs to be going to pressure the ball. Kone as well. But Tchouaméni stands completely still, and Kone just takes too long to get out there. Comes to Dani Olmo. He plays it out wide to Porro. And France still, at this stage, they should be okay. They should be. Porro looks for Lamine Yamal. Nope. He's marked. He's going to turn and make a run, or he wants to turn and make a run, but he realizes there's not much there. So Porro starts to come inside, drives in a little bit, and plays the ball into Dani Olmo. Now watch Porro and watch Doué, because these are the marks right here. I mean, Doué's just standing completely still. Also, Maxence Lacroix. You've stepped up here. That's fine. But as soon as this ball gets played to Dani Olmo, you need to drop. If it gets laid off to Oyarzabal, fine. You can step again. But you cannot leave this space wide open. Also, again, just watch Doué. Just standing completely still. Dani Olmo gets completely taken out by Upamecano. Pedro Porro running through completely on his own. And Maignan, he gives Porro the right side. He really gives it to him. Like, he's completely cut off the back, and he's given him this side. So I'm surprised that he just sort of starfishes his save instead of really goes this way and dives out to get it, because he's really given Porro a ton of goal to aim at. And Porro's a right back. Like, this isn't the type of guy who's probably going to dink the finish over you here. He might, but it's not as likely. So I like what Maignan did there, but then he splays himself and sort of lays down instead of really attacking the ball. I'm not a goalkeeper, but, it's just something I notice. So 2-0 and the game's basically done. And Spain at this point were just toying with France. And France did not know how to get the ball. They just couldn't do it. And you've got Lamine Yamal making a run off the back here. And because Pau Cubarsí has so much time and space, he's able to thread that through. Lamine Yamal gets in, takes the defenders on, beats Digne, puts it in the top corner, but he's narrowly offside. And that could have been the utter demolition of France. 2-0, I think, was the fair score. 3-0 would have felt harsh, but Spain would have probably been good with that. Oh, sorry. There we go. So that's it. I mean, I could go deep, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper into all the triangles that Spain created. I think that's been covered for years now. Spain are playing the same way they have. And what I love about seeing these two teams play each other, because they've done it quite a few times. I mean, you had a thrilling 5-4 in the Nations League between these two teams. But Spain looked utterly dominant through most of that. I think they had a 3-goal lead. Spain chopped it to 3-1. Then Spain went up 5-1. And then France scored 3 goals to make it 5-4. But France were dead and gone for long periods of that game. France lost in the Euros to Spain. Lamine Yamal scored an absolutely brilliant goal. But again, at that time, France were playing a little more conservative. And I think Deschamps here, give him some credit, and also I do want to give him some credit, but he took a risk, right? In past tournaments, he's been very much more pragmatic. He'll drop into a 4-4-2 or 4-5-1 and be like, we're going to keep the game simple. We're going to wait for a moment. And that's how it felt like France were under Deschamps, which always made you think, is he getting the best out of the talent that he has? And this tournament, he finally just went, it's my last hurrah. I'm playing with 4 forwards. Forget it. Let's go. And I commend him for that. I really do. The only thing is, on a day like this, where you're playing against a team like Spain, who are not going to drop 10 guys behind the ball, it makes sense to play 4 forwards against every other team France played against. They're defending so deep, you need the guys up there to help score goals. So it only makes sense. The problem is Spain were not going to drop that many guys behind the ball unless they needed to. And they did from time to time. But most of the time, Lamine Yamal was still high. Oyarzabal was still high. Baena was sort of tucking in a little bit. But Dani Olmo was always ready to float. He was ready to try and win balls, second balls off of Oyarzabal, the center backs, France's 2 midfielders. They were not dropping super deep. And when they're that good at keeping the ball, basically you have to have one, your game plan has to go perfectly well, or Spain will manhandle you. So meaning your attacking players have to deliver and score, as we saw they didn't. And then you can't make dumb mistakes in the back. And those mistakes from France. I mean, Luca Digne on the penalty, that's awful. Then Desiree Doué comes on, and within 3 minutes, he doesn't track Pedro Porro. It's just not good enough. So, look, France, I think, really shot themselves in the foot on this one. I know it may seem like I'm just covering and coping for my boys. Sure, you can say that. That's fine. I am coping. It's hard. Last night I didn't sleep very much. I didn't sleep very well. And the reason why is because the manner of the defeat, it just felt like Spain are just superior to France right now. Even regardless of the players, they are superior. I wonder if that could have to do with the setup and the way the managers decided to deal with the things. I'm not super convinced that Didier Deschamps needed to do what he did. I'm not convinced that he needed to stick that front four up there and specifically for this game, just roll with what he had, sort of as a matter of principle. This is what we've done. We want to keep doing it. I see a couple people are trying to chat, but they're not showing up in my chat box, which is... Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Let me see if... Okay. Let me address some of the chats because I missed all of these. So I don't know how long ago any said these. Greetings, fellow footballers. England win today. Delmore, look, I'm absolutely hoping for an England victory. 100%. My father's English. My mother's French. France became my team in 98. Actually, it's funny. 98, my heart was up for grabs. And I remember celebrating Beckham's free kick goal against Colombia by jumping up and screaming, yes, because I loved the England team at that time. Their game against Argentina was, it was a really tough one to watch. But then at the end, you got France winning, Zidane. Then Zidane became my favorite player, and that's where my heart ended up. But look, England, I really would like to see them win a title. I'm not entirely excited to see either Spain or Argentina add another star on their badge. I'd prefer to see England get a second one than either of those two add anything to it. Look, I think at this point, the top four teams, anyone who wins, it's legit. It's fair. They all have their own identity. They play their way. They've all got brilliant players who are match winners, stars. So I'm good with it. And I really do hope England can get it done today. Laporte got his revenge. Yeah, right, on Deschamps. I mean, he's got double now, Laporte, because Didier Deschamps never called... The interesting thing is, when Laporte was kind of coming through, I think he was at Bilbao, because he's a player that kind of got missed by the French system. And so he came through at Bilbao, or came through in France, but was at Bilbao for the early years of his career. And he never got called up to the France team, even in times where it was like pretty obvious that there was a spot there for a guy like him, like left center back. It's open. You could bring him in for the window. And Didier Deschamps never chose him. And so he never got that appearance that would have meant that he can't play for Spain. This also happened to Robin Lenormand, who's not as good as Aymeric Laporte. But yeah, Laporte then becomes a Spanish citizen, and fair play to him. I mean, yeah. That's a tough one. France needed a Giroud. Rodri was dominant in the air. Yeah, actually, all of Magnan's big balls out, France weren't winning them because Barcola, Mbappe, Dembele, Olise, they're not going to win those big balls out in the air over a guy like Laporte or a hungry defender like Pau Cubarsí or even Rodri, who is actually massive. And Rodri, yeah, was brilliant. Who's a snitch? What's up? How's it going? Greetings to you in Scotland. Look, I'm doing a live stream early enough for you not to have to be up at 3 a.m. Playing on the tarmac, warming up, destination London. What? Well, you're going to London. Hopefully you get to see a good big party there. Although I don't know if you want to see that. I know the Scots, if you're Scottish, I know you may not want to see England do well. But I do think it'd be cool for the country. I'm not opposed to hearing Wonderwall again today. Spain outclassed France. Yeah, in a way they did. I mean, that's definitely what it felt like. It hurt. It sucked. I'm not happy about it. And yeah, I mean, it was just a really, really tough day for me yesterday to watch that. So look, we've talked about England and Argentina a little bit. Let's get to that because I think the book on Spain France has now been closed. Let me just say one last thing about these two teams. First of all, Spain are hosting the next World Cup, so if they win this one, the triple is on, right? They really could do a hat trick of World Cups if they win this one. So someone's got to stop Spain or they're just going to dominate. They are also destroying at the youth levels. Keep in mind, they also beat France in the final of the Olympics. Was it 2 years ago? Last year? So, 2 years ago. So Spain have been cleaning up at the youth levels. They're now cleaning up at the top level, and they don't even have a team full of bona fide stars. They've got Lamine Yamal. They've got Rodri, a Ballon d'Or winner. I think Dani Olmo is a proper footballer. So's Oyarzabal. But then you got like an Alex Baena, who is still young, right? He was in that Olympic team last year, scored some great goals for them. So he's got room to grow. Fabian Ruiz, stalwart. They've still got Pedri waiting in the wings. He didn't even have a good tournament. I mean, Kubarsi in the back. Cucurella's still got plenty of time. Who knows, like Pedro Porro? Like, they're able to pull these guys out. It's like they won the Euros with Jesus Navas as their right back. Like, Spain just find a way. And so the scary thing right now is what if in the next 2-3 years they develop one or two more world-class players that they're able to blood into this team, and by the next World Cup, they've got like 4 or 5 legit stars, and they kind of look like France this time. France, Deschamps is going to be done, so we all assume it's Zidane to take his place. We'll see how that goes. The big thing is, what's the authority going to look like? It looked like Deschamps had plenty of authority and a happy camp at this World Cup. But France in the past have suffered from unhappy camps. Managers who are not the right people for the squad, players who are maybe just thinking they're too big. And so France need to avoid all this. This generation of players, they can bring the exact same team back to the Euros. They can bring the exact same team back to the next World Cup. So it's all about what Zidane is able to do with the pool and then what he chooses to do with his tactics. All right, that's it for France against Spain. England, Argentina. There's already bad blood in the air on this one. It's looking really feisty already. A lot of fans discourse online, everything, the build up with all this stuff about Argentina getting favoritism. And actually what's really interesting is Argentina, they are in this funny position because they're world champions. They're back in the semifinal and they're definitely sure of what they can accomplish, but they've suffered to get to this point. And I think they know full well that it is going to be really tough against England. So they're ready to bring a war because they know that this is not just any random team they're playing. They know that if they play the way they have in prior rounds, they're going to go out. Like, they're aware of this. But also, the talk around Argentina and how they're getting favoritism and like leniency from referees and stuff, it has charged the atmosphere in a weird way and kind of similar to what I was seeing at AFCON this year. So, for context, Morocco were the hosts, and as the competition went on, there were a lot of fans who were convinced that everything was being put in favor of Morocco to win, to the point of referee decisions and everything, which is why the final erupted in such chaos that it did, and Senegal players left the pitch, which may have lost them the title that they eventually won. It's because just the towel stuff, if you heard about all that, there was just so much going on and so much talk of corruption leading up to the final that it just made the game really tense and made everyone on the outside ready to pop. So I don't know what's going to happen, but like if England lose to Argentina in a controversial way, this whole Argentina are getting favored narrative is going to explode beyond the point where someone like me can like be like, no, stop. Like, I don't think this was happening. At that point, I'll just be like, I don't know. Just feel free to say what you want. But look, how is this game going to be won? Argentina, I imagine, will have more of the ball than England. Now, it depends on what these stretches of possession from each team look like. I also would not be surprised if both teams keep the ball for 10 to 15 to 20 passes without actually going anywhere. So there's going to be, I think, a lot of useless possession in this game. Important possession, though, in the middle of the field or in the attacking part of the field for the team that has the ball. That is going to be where longer stretches are important, because what they do is they force your opponents back. They have to drop deeper and deeper, and then they can't counterattack. That's going to be crucial for Argentina. If they can pin England back, it's going to be much harder, much harder for England to break out and score goals. But England have the physicality to do this, the athleticism to do this. We've seen it. Jude Bellingham's got that. If you play off of Harry Kane, you've got wingers like Gordon, who will run all day. Saka, I think, Madueke, who will run. But Saka, if he starts, you give him space and he gets into open areas, he can destroy you. Not necessarily with his speed, but with his trickery. And with how good he is at shaking a defender on the side and finding someone in the middle. So England's counterattacking is going to be crucial. The other thing, central midfield, and I don't know who's going to play. I actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at this game. We'll take a look at the potential starting lineups. Now, these are the predicted lineups, so we don't really know. But it's basically, well, they've got Morgan Rogers projected to start on the right wing here. Interesting, Fatmob. And they've got Konza at right back instead of Reece James. I doubt Reece James will start because he was kind of injured. Also, they have a back three for Argentina, which I don't think is really how they play, but sometimes it is. I mean, it's a fluid system. Basically, the midfield, I think, is where this game is going to be won or lost, and it's going to be the team that can actually win balls in the midfield and turn them into attacks versus which team can connect the most amount of passes with their back line in their midfield. Elliot Anderson's been excellent in this tournament. I am now starting to understand why City paid the money they did for him, because I believe Rodri's still at City, and so Rodri and Elliot Anderson as a midfield pairing, that's terrifying. Bellingham's going to have to step up huge. Again, it's just that simple. Anthony Gordon's got to have one of the games of his life where he's really useful in attack and not just a runner. We'll see what kind of condition Declan Rice is in, and Pickford's going to have to be immense. Obviously, England have to watch out for Messi, but the thing about Argentina, most teams have done that okay. It's just that they've lost control of everything else going on around, and then Messi pops up and scores or creates assists. This England team can handle this Argentina team physically, and they're going to need to do that. I don't think the worst thing is to go man for man. Actually, one thing on the France-Spain game, Kylian Mbappe after the match seemed to question Deschamps' tactics, and he said that basically they should have gone man for man against Spain and just decided we'll just outrun them and just outbody them. Don't know if that's the right decision. Don't know if that would have worked. But it definitely is something that I think England could possibly do. Because, Argentina, I don't think necessarily have really the ability to run with England. I really don't think they do. This is an older team. They like to move the ball around. They like to slow the game down. And I really do think that England can win the physicality battle. Then it's all about quality in specific areas. It's going to be a really tough one to call. I would not be surprised if this is like a 0-0 or a 1-1 that goes to penalties. That, to me, the most likely is that. I'll just say 1-1, penalties. And on penalties, I think England win. I do. And because it's not about Emi Martinez or Jordan Pickford. I think they're both decent at saving penalties. I just think England have a few more guys who are penalty takers. That's what they do. They're very good at. I've seen many of these England players at their clubs take penalties and look pretty good. Argentina, it's like Messi, Alvarez, Enzo I've seen take some for Chelsea, but not with the best success. So the Argentine players in penalties will be unknown, but also, I'm just not totally convinced by them. And you'll say, well, they won basically the same team won 2 shootouts back in 2022, and that's true. But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter. I just give England the edge. So I'm going with England winning on penalties after a 1-1 draw. That's my call for this. Thoughts, anyone? Anyone? I want to get onto this 64-team World Cup and then wrap up. Because there's been a lot of talk in the last few days about this, about the 64-team World Cup, because Gianni Infantino hinted at it and more people have talked about it. And people have been kind of dissecting what they thought about this 48-team World Cup and sort of what it represented. Was this a success? Was this good? I mean, what do you guys think? Did anyone here like the 48 teams versus 32? I prefer 32 personally. I think that's the best structure. 48 I don't really love because I don't like the whole third place teams go through thing. I think if you finish third in your group, like your bottom half of the teams, you should go out if you're in the bottom half, right? That's my opinion. Group stage can just separate, just a line in the middle. If you're in the top half of teams, great, you can go to the knockouts. Bottom half, you're out. So 64-team World Cup actually makes that much more feasible. You just have 4 more groups. Top 2 teams go through, bottom two teams go out, and none of this third place table business. I think that would be better. Now, what does that mean for qualification? Okay, what will that do to the qualification situation? Are too many teams going to get in? Are poor teams going to get in, or are just going to get destroyed? These are some of the main arguments. I'm actually going to pull up the FIFA rankings real quick right here. Okay, show full rankings. Bring you in on this as well. So, if we take a look at the rankings, Spain, France, Argentina, England, top 4. Then you got Brazil, Morocco, Portugal, Belgium, Netherlands, and Mexico have jumped up to 10th. That's pretty impressive. Germany have dropped out of the top 10. Then you got Colombia as well, Germany, Croatia, Switzerland, Italy ranked 15th, not in the tournament. So this is the first team I want to show. I want to show the teams that are not in the World Cup who are ranked in the top 64, essentially. Denmark, it's a proper side, right? Consistently pretty good team. Didn't make it. Now you'll say, well, yeah, Czechia's who knocked them out. And, you know, Czechia's not that great. I think it was Czechia. And that's true, you know. But then you got Iran, Austria, Egypt, Ecuador, Nigeria. Now, they were beaten in the playoffs of the CAF qualifying by DR Congo in a penalty shootout. So you're looking at it, it's like, oh, okay, they went to a playoff. So, like, it's basically like if you did the qualification, but you didn't do any of the playoffs. It's just the first and second teams go straight to the World Cup, no playoffs, and that probably would do it. Then you got another clutch of teams who were at the tournament: Turkey, Australia, Algeria, Canada, Cote d'Ivoire, Korea, Ukraine. Always a solid team. Not a team that would get embarrassed at a World Cup. Russia, Poland, same thing. Stodgy teams, maybe not great to watch, but capable of beating one of the big teams if the big team has an off day and they're looking good. Then you got Sweden, who barely made it and have been poor the last few years. But look, Sweden's always a traditionally solid team. Then you start to get into an interesting area. Wales, they're not great. Hungary, not great. Serbia should be higher. They should be better. But again, these 3 teams, if they're at the World Cup, I'm not crying about it. Cameroon, get them in. That's awesome. And now we start to get into the difficult territory here, where you got Slovakia, Greece. I know they've won a Euros, but still. Venezuela, who's never made it to the World Cup. Chile, who are incredibly bad right now for some reason. Peru, Costa Rica, Romania, Mali. You're really getting into the teams that you're like, yeah, I don't know how much I care about having them in the World Cup. Republic of Ireland, Slovenia. And then you've got the teams who were awful at the World Cup. Tunisia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. They were the worst. Bosnia and Uzbekistan, I think, showed out pretty well. I think Uzbekistan showed that they're building something in their country, that they're getting better. I think 60 is probably as low as they'll really get in the rankings, or in the 60s. I think they're climbing. But then, yeah, after that, it's Burkina Faso, Iraq. Cabo Verde have helped themselves. Ghana, Albania. You start to see where this goes, right? Now you're getting to the teams where you're like, Yeah, I'm just not so convinced if they qualify for the World Cup, they're going to bring much to the table. Guinea, Oman, Montenegro, and then you find Curacao. And then you find New Zealand. And then you find Haiti, right? And between them is Angola, Bulgaria, Gabon, Syria. So, yeah. Basically, I think the tough part with the 48 team World Cup is the good thing about the 48 team World Cup is it's probably just the right amount. Again, it's not going to 52. It's adding 14 more teams. And as we saw, the first 5 to 10 teams that are in the top 60, yeah, fine. But then you start to get into like, okay, Wales, but Wales were good when they had their little golden generation with like, you know, Ramsey and Bale and, you know, all these guys that just help take this team into the Euros and pull off a shock. But that's what it takes for these smaller nations. They need like a good generation of players that are going to take them to the next level. And some of these nations just don't really have that. Now there's other nations who might be able to stack up their teams a little bit more, like Curacao, finding a bunch of Dutch players, diaspora, and make themselves better. That is possible. But yeah, I just sort of wonder, is the 16th 4-team World Cup going to make the competition worse? One thing it will definitely do is make qualifying an absolute, like, non-event. And I kind of am okay with that because everyone complains about how many games the players play throughout the year. Well, here's a way to reduce the fixture list. Just take out most of the qualifying. Make it real simple. Like, here you go. You got a group of 6 teams in your qualifying zone. You play each other, or like you got 5 teams, 4 teams, whatever you want to do. You're basically going to play 6, 8 qualifying games. Top 2 teams go to the World Cup. That's it. And I think if you do that, at least you reduce the fixture congestion. But also at the same time, like if you're an international manager, you're like, okay, so when can I work with my team? That's the thing about this conversation that's so difficult, is that there is no perfect format, and you're going to hurt somebody by taking away fixtures from somewhere, right? And I'm not talking about the monetary thing. I mean that if you add fixtures to make more qualifying to keep the World Cup smaller, well, you're adding more fixtures, qualifying ones that no one actually wants to watch. If you remove those fixtures and kind of put them in the World Cup, well, now you're adding teams to the whole thing that maybe shouldn't be there. It's a tough question. And I think the number one positive is that we've seen more countries from around the world over the last basically forever improving as a country, improving as a football nation, and becoming more competitive on the world stage. Uzbekistan are absolutely one of those examples. They were literally nowhere football-wise. And about 3-4 years ago, I started to see them in knockout rounds. Like, I'd just be checking scores, and I would see, like, oh, you know, the U17 Euros. And it's like Uzbekistan in the quarterfinal. Like, huh. And then I see it again, and then I see it again. And it's just consistently, they've been doing decently well in those tournaments. So you knew a generation was coming. And that's cool. I think it's great. Uzbekistan are now like on the map of a World Cup team. Curacao are going to keep doing what they like. The only way Curacao make it to the World Cup again is once again they have a full team of Dutch players, basically, because that island is not going to produce enough talent. Haiti, hopefully the country, things calm down there, and it just gets a little more settled and they can really build. That would be nice. But then it's interesting. You got South American teams like Venezuela were on the brink of qualification for this World Cup for a while. They like started really well in qualification and then just started to get draws and losses and still have never qualified for a World Cup. Venezuela, that country is enormous. It's baseball crazy, but it is still football mad, so it's nuts they've never made it to the World Cup. Bolivia, they've made it to the World Cup, I think, a couple times, maybe once or twice. And like they're not a nation that does well either, right? Now, we've seen Chile make it and be good. We've seen Peru make it before. But these teams are going through really horrible periods where they're just not in good shape. And yet they would be able to make it anyway. This is what's tough. I actually think the World Cup is as the group stage is kind of the main event where everyone gets to enjoy and the football party's fantastic. So I don't think it's the worst thing to have a few more teams in it, more games. I don't mind that. Does it weaken the competition? I think the one thing that this World Cup has also shown us is that adding an extra knockout round game makes this even harder to win. So that's not bad either. It's not a dilution of who wins it. It just makes the group stage a little more chaotic and kind of crazy. But yeah, just thoughts. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's anything perfect, but it is interesting to talk about the pros and cons because a lot of people are going to talk about this. And I'm very interested to hear over the next few weeks and stuff, different people's opinions. So, all right, we are getting closer to kickoff. It's in about an hour and 40 minutes. I've got a few things I got to take care of before then. Also, give you a quick gander at Usman and Killian. These two little dudes. Yep, they came into my life the day of the France-Morocco game. My friend found them in an alley in a taped-up box. Someone had literally put them in it to die, to kill them. And he called me up and he was like, hey, I've got 2 kittens here that were left out to die. Do you want them? And he brought them over, and I looked at them, and I was like, dude, they're brothers. This is awesome. And then France, and then Dembele and Mbappe scored for France. I was like, we're naming you guys that. So, company now when I'm streaming. It's cool. Okay, not much time left in this World Cup. It's very sad. Very sad to think that in basically 4 days, this is all over, and we have to wait 4 more years for the next one. But enjoy the England game today. England, I'm really hoping they can pull it out against Argentina, but this is going to be a classic in terms of a battle. Don't know about it in terms of a football spectacle, but who knows? And then I'll cover that again. I'll go and stream in a few hours after this game as well. So basically, right after the match, I'll be back here. So, and maybe give me half an hour. I got to load my clips like we did for the France-Spain game. Okay, it's time to duck out. Thanks a lot for sticking around and being here. I really appreciate it. Who's the snitch? Safe travels. Because I said, that's it. You're going to London, right? Playing on the tarmac. So I'm sure at this point you've had to duck out. So safe travels. Hope you make it back okay. Jingzuzu. I do not know how to pronounce Chinese names, but thank you as well for commenting. It's been good to see you. Robert. I hope you enjoy the game as well if you're still around. And then, let's just meet back here, okay? Campfire Football is the place to be for this stuff. Like this stream. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. This is only the beginning in terms of these kinds of live streams. I will be covering football as I do 365 days a year. So I really appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you back in a couple hours.